it's a thrill to be back in New York doing the show from the studio here in New York. You may know that a couple of weeks ago we attempted to do a show here in New York from a whole different studio. This one was unavailable, and one of my big issues was air conditioning. My people wanted the desert for 40 years, but we had a fan, so I asked ahead of time that there be lots of icebergs in the room, and to say that did not happen, to say that when I entered the studio was hot. Let me give you an idea, if I might. I like yourself, sense a joke coming. What we now refer to as the last episode, number 52. If you saw the show, you know that it was close to 110 degrees there. It was rather unpleasant, to say the least, but to give you an idea of how hot it was in the other studio, when we arrived, Hitler was already seated at our table. Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show number 54. We're very excited here from New York because the air conditioning is working. So very pleased that everyone was able to throw this together on time. It's our first pre-taped show, sans the live edition. Of course, you watching it after the fact, this doesn't affect you at all. You could care less. But so I just wanted to mention it ever so briefly to sort of get it out of my head where it's been swimming. Also, I can't do the lovely buffering moment. I always like to take a moment where I But of course I can do that because people are watching later on their computer, which might have been buffering. I want to thank the New York crew here, first of all. Andrew Lipson, Gerard Mackey, Dave, you're going to help me with the last name. I have Acheta. That can't possibly be right. Aceta. Again, let's watch the tone, Dave. And also Mary Aaron for doing the makeup, as always. And then, of course, a quick shout out to my folks back in Los Angeles. My regular crew director, Mike Rotman, my head writer and lovely better half, Jamie Fox. Producers, Jason McIntyre, Josh Negrin, Dr. Kenny Chen, Emily Goodwin, and everyone else that I'm, of course, forgetting. Yeah, so here in the New York to finish up work on the big picture, which I've gone on already about ad nauseum, so we'll let that go for now. But we have a very exciting guest today that I'm a little anxious to get to. So let's take care of some quick business up at the top here. Next week we'll be off, of course, for the 4th of July celebration. Apparently, we defeated the British. And then coming back on July 11th with the J.K. Simmons. For those of you who enjoy that fella, myself being one of them. I want to apologize. We have brand new coffee mugs, thanks to the fine folks at ePromos. And I was commenting to Craig Ferguson about my picture on the mug, which is animated. And you can go to last week's show with Craig. We did a little nice tight close-up of the mug, and we were commenting that the color, the pigmentation on me was a little wrong. And I used the word that I was trying to abbreviate the word Pakistan to suggest that my skin tone might have been from that part of the world. And the word that I used, which I should not repeat, is not appreciated at all by those that love to call themselves we of Pakistan. So this gentleman wrote from the UK, not even from the Pakistan, because I'd like to think we're being watched there as well. And it was very lovely. If you're watching, thank you for being so forgiving in your tutorial. because I had no clue, and I couldn't feel more like an idiot. So sorry to you and everyone else that I possibly offended with the misuse of the word Negro. Wait, what? Oops, I did it again. All right. We have a lovely thing here on the show called Ask Kevin, and I want to get to those right away. I wish we had a graphic, because that would be fun to throw up. T5, T5 forever now. If only we... No, T5, that's not the shot. T5 in the New York food.
Hey, go back.
Go back real quick.
Here's the graphic.
Go back to that two-shot, please.
This is the... Ask Kevin!
There it is. That's perfect. Thank you very much. I think everyone left the studio when I used the word Jew. Okay, this from Occasionally Keen. It could be at Occasionally Keen. I have a memory of Mr. Pollak on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. My father was never on the show, so how dare you. Trying to teach Johnny how to move his eye to do a Peter Falk impersonation. Cross your eye, look to the right, cross your eye, look to the right. You actually wrote it out for me in case I forgot how it worked. Of course, I could be full of beans. My question for Kevin is, what are his memories of Mr. Carson, and what would he have wanted to get into his poker game? I asked Steve Martin, who I'm doing this movie with, what it was like to play in Johnny's game, and the buy-in was only $400. I had heard it would reach proportions of $10,000, $100,000 back in the 70s when they were playing, but it was $400 buy-in with several rebuys and whatnot. It was a regular cash game. But yes, of course, to sit around that table would have been insane. My guest and I today actually met, I believe, at a poker table. Hank Azaria's game at the home of Rich Eisen. I'm going to come up with more names in a second. Mr. Carson, on the other hand, the king. The best example I could give for why he was the master and will always be. If you remember the setup of the show, he would introduce the guest. Now, my next guest is a little strange. Please welcome Kevin Pollak. And he would come out from his left, and you would cross in front of his desk. He would stand, unlike Lena, who would dance out behind the desk. Hey, good to see you. How are you? The king would stay behind his desk as you pass in front of him. And he would lean over to shake your hand. And for a brief moment on your way to the chair, you would have your back to the audience as you shook Johnny's hand. Well, after I did the thing that you mentioned, where I taught Johnny how to do the Peter Falk eye, it's very simple, really. You just move one eye. How difficult could it be? I taught him how to do that with my fingers, yes, as you mentioned. Move one, cross and then move to the left. It looks like one eye is moving. I taught Johnny how to do that, yes. And then every time, I did the show a couple of dozen times, he would, here's Kevin Pollak. And I would cross in front of him, my back to the audience for the briefest moment on the way to the chair. He would reach over to shake my hand, and there would be this moment between the two of us that would last a nanosecond, and he would say, I'm sorry to bother you, sorry, sir. And then I would sit down next to him. What he was doing in that moment, it took me years to realize, was to make me feel as comfortable as possible that I had an inside joke with the king as I'm sitting down into what should be the most nervous situation of the year. Made me feel like $1 million damn. So that was one of my absolute fondest memories of him. The other one was being bumped my first time on, as so many people were, and cursing and screaming in my dressing room because, of course, you call everyone you've ever met to tell them I'm on The Tonight Show tonight. And now when you get bumped, you have to call them all back. Yeah, it didn't work out. And then you have to have a 19-minute conversation with each one of them. You can't just go through the list. Didn't work out. Didn't work out. Didn't work out. So, and then 19 minutes with each person saying, I'm so sorry. Oh, that must feel horrible. Yeah, I'd love to share it with you, but I get so pissed because Sammy Davis Jr. did 4 songs. 2 songs, rarely done on The Tonight Show. 3, maybe once. Sammy did 4 songs. And I'm in my dressing room. Son of a bitch, I'm going to skull fuck him. I was so pissed off. It was ridiculous. So he came into my dressing room afterwards and said, I am so sorry. You kids with the whole shakonk-kakonk. That's a quote. And I instantly forgave and fell madly in love with Sammy Davis. He's out in the parking lot taking photos with us afterwards. So those are my memories of Carson. Thank you for that, Ask Kevin. And now we go on to Bruno Santos, who asked, first of all, congratulations on Vamped Out. Very well thought characters. Now I understand that the concept of a vampire not being cast was not your idea, but your idea was to turn that into a web series. That said, is it the first time that you think something could fit well into a web series, or did you just see the potential of this new form of entertainment recently? Speaking of that, what was the first web series that caught your attention? Much success, Bruno Santos. Vamped Out, yes. You go to babblegum.com. You can see the new comedy series Vamped Out. With a world gone crazy with too many films, books, and movies featuring beautiful vampires, what if you were a real vampire right now who couldn't get cast to be one? That is the premise of Vamped Out, and it's been an exceptional experience. I've directed these 6 episodes that I co-created with its star, Jason Antoon, who you may know from the New York theater. We'll get to that in a second. So yeah, more episodes coming. And the first web series that caught my eye, I'm going to say Wainy Days. I'm going to go ahead and float that out there because I believe that was the one. And yeah, so I turned to the web for that series because basically I didn't want the networks to add water to what I thought was a kind of perfect idea. And as I've spoken before, the networks have an uncanny, savant-like ability to find the heart, soul, and center of why something is special, and then add water right to that pinpoint. And the web seemed like the only place, and in fact was total control, creative freedom that I hadn't experienced since my stand-up days, so thank you for that question. Screeched in. Question last asked Kevin by SS53. Hey Kevin, I was curious, on your recent trip to Newfoundland, you participated in what the ritual called Screeched In. How did you find the experience? Exactly how long did it take you to say, "Indeed I is me old cock, long may your big jib draw"? It took me only 2 passes at it. And I was screeched in. We showed a video last week at the Craig Ferguson show of the whole process of being at Dan Aykroyd's Crystal Head Vodka Distillery in Newfoundland, which was a dreamlike experience. And I encourage everyone to go there when you're on the rock. All right, that wraps it up for Ask Kevin.
I think he prefers it to be called Dwayne Johnson now.
Yeah, right? It is. It is indeed the Dwayne Johnson, not The Rock. 100,000 people on Dwayne Johnson. That's all. My guest
Well, he lifts.
played the Larry King game when we met the first time at the poker game. And it was one of the first times at the Larry King game, which now everyone who watches the show is annoyingly familiar with. But it was the first time where the Larry King game had circulated around a group of fellas at this particular time at a poker table over a 6-hour period where it could marinate in certain people's minds. And the nice advantage there when you play with your friends at home is to let it sit for a while. And then in the middle of nothing, someone just throws one out randomly. They have an impact that is considerably more fabulous. Elizabeth Kruger sends this one in. Remembering the rules, bad Larry King impression, takes all the pressure off doing a good one. Bad Larry King impression, Larry revealing something about himself on the air that none of us want to know, and then go to the phones. It helps if the city is funny sounding. At Walter Cronkite's wake, I put my balls on his face and sang show tunes. Yazoo City, Mississippi, what say you? Elizabeth Kruger, God bless you. I found your show on iTunes recently. It's extremely entertaining and funny. Most importantly, it is sincere and honest. So unlike the others, with the questions peppered with plugs and more plugs, the tweet questions and games are brilliant. I think of you as the internet chat show Graham Norton. What should I... 16 jokes right through went, get me some cock. We'll go there. It doesn't get much better. I hope Richard Kind drops by. What did I say? Richard will be here when it's convenient. He has great stories. Yes, he does. And then signed Jill. So who Elizabeth Kruger is, we'll let you fill in the blanks. Jill and or Elizabeth, please write us again at contact@kevinpollackschatshow.com with your address so we can send you a Kevin Pollak's Chat Show t-shirt for that lovely submission. All right. I think I got through everything. Again, apologies for offending everyone from Pakistan. All right. Fans of the cinema often lament ad nauseum about the lack of modern-day so-called movie stars equal to yesteryear's Jimmy Stewart's, Cary Grant's, Steve McQueen's, etc. While Tom Hanks is our Stewart, Clooney our Grant, and there's no replacing McQueen, we do have ourselves another Jack Lemmon, says I. Please welcome Mr. Paul Rudd. How are you?
I'll tell you something. I was expecting the cut, maybe a funny face, a look down the barrel, maybe a sip of the coffee, and then you come in with that? I can't.
You're fucked.
I can't be funny after that.
Too kind.
Now all I can say is yes. What a lovely thing to say.
Right.
Who's Jack Lemmon?
He's not important.
No.
Let me ask this question.
Not even close. Not even close. But nice of you to say.
Well, listen. It's not of you. It's not. You can't possibly be objective. How's the sound in there, fellas? I noticed there's a microphone headed south on Mr. Rudd, and He's good. He's good.
Look at that.
That's right.
That's
you see what I'm saying?
Right there in the right there.
It's all working out.
Right there in the neckline.
First of all, thanks.
Thank you.
Let's get that out of the way.
It's done. Forget
Okay,
it.
done.
It's over. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Please. You came here, speaking of getting things over with, you came here from the Apple Store, where today, June 24th, you picked yourself up...
Day one.
Day one.
Yeah.
And now, so obviously you've been in line every single time they've launched an Apple product.
This is the first time I've ever gotten anything on the day that it comes out. Generally, I avoid that.
What about going to see a movie when it first opens?
No.
Won't do it.
No, not really. Unless I did see Toy Story 3 the day it opened.
Me too, the noon show.
10:45.
The best.
Amazing.
Crying at the end?
Oh, yeah.
Uncontrollable.
A mess.
Yeah.
And I did see Glitter the day it came out. And I'm not kidding. But no, normally I'm not that guy. I don't want to wait in a line. I was watching it on the news this morning, and there are these crowds, and people are sleeping there at 3 a.m. And then they say, well, it's going to be available next week too.
Technically.
And then you say, well, they asked these people why wait in line then for hours and hours, and the response was, I want to be a part of history. And I'm thinking,
no.
Is it that
history?
historic? Really?
Yeah.
Is it that? I mean, it's not the
Galileo.
moon landing. Galileo. Yeah.
Armstrong?
Uh-huh. iPhone 4.
iPhone 4.
Yeah.
First in line. Yeah, I can't imagine.
Well,
you need to Triumph the Insult Dog in that line.
Yeah.
For those who take it seriously.
It'll be like it's like that Star Wars thing revisited. Yeah, absolutely. It's perfect for
So
it.
you were in line today.
I slept there.
I
slept there. I got there at about 11 o'clock last night.
Who were your buddies that you made friends with?
You
want to give a shout out
to my friends in line?
Yeah.
Danny, Tommy Ocean. I want to say hey to Dallas and all dudes, all guys.
And the city.
Is it a thing that do girls go and wait in line for an iPhone? That seems like it's a predominantly male thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and males who haven't maybe seen naked vagina ever. If we could be that.
Barely clothed vagina.
if I could be that pedestrian. But
can all spell vagina.
Forward and back.
And text it quickly.
Yeah. Now you went day one because
I needed a new phone.
It's just that simple.
It's really that simple. I really need, and I had an iPhone before.
Sure.
I was already roped into the AT&T plan.
The annual dinosaur.
So, and by the way, my phone doesn't work in my apartment. That's convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about AT&T is this. To me, having this nationwide campaign of fewest drop calls, it's as if they had a meeting and said, what would be true in opposite world in terms of how we're going to campaign the phone? So it doesn't work in your apartment.
No.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I don't take calls inside.
No. Yeah, you don't like people. Yeah. So you got yourself the new phone, and the first observations you want to share? Any
honestly, I haven't even used it.
Okay, perfect. Let's get the hell off that.
But apparently, I think it looks nice. It feels good in my pocket.
It's lighter.
I don't know.
Yeah, actually, it's small. It's thinner, but not lighter, is what I read.
It doesn't feel lighter.
No.
It's
now,
a phone.
Sure, let's get over it. It looks a little bit more like the monolith
from 2001.
2001.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of the people that were standing in line today reacted to it similarly.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, dancing around and hitting it with bones.
Yeah. let's go to
The phones?
the Summer of Love.
Okay.
If we can transition easily and beautifully. The year before the Summer of Love, which I believe for our people was the Summer of Self-Loathing, you were conceived, according to your dossier.
Conceived, I guess I was conceived before the Summer of Love.
Right.
By two people who had nothing to do with hippie anything.
No, they weren't.
No.
They were British, first of all.
Yeah.
And are, technically. Did they get their citizenship at some point?
Yeah.
It didn't take long.
It didn't take long. My father left London when he was about 9, and lived in Paterson, New Jersey. So
Also.
he kind of grew up, here. My mom was about 18, 19 years old. So when she left,
Chased out by Cossacks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, could just part of that. It's a classic tale. That, by the way, you're Woody Allen, fantastic. One of my favorite lines in any Woody Allen movie. Didn't your grandmother give gifts? No, she was too busy being raped by Cossacks.
Yes. Yeah. And you just noticed something. You said while the graphic was playing that there was something in the Woody Allen impression
That I really got. It's as if he's
swallowing.
Well, I can't.
Sure.
I can't do it. I'll try and
just give the swallowing.
I've never done a Woody Allen impersonation, but it's about swallowing. It's all about like as you just had something from a straw.
Yeah.
I am didactic.
Yes.
It's the hard K.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than a bad Woody Allen impersonation.
All right, we'll get to the bad Larry King later. You're relieved of your responsibilities, right? Yeah. That's weird.
But well done, you.
Well,
and also
yes,
the way you pronounced room. There was an iceberg in the room. I don't know how to do it.
Was it typically New York?
No, it was just it was so dead on.
There was an iceberg in the room.
Room.
Yeah.
Room.
There was an extra syllable in the word room.
3 O's.
Yes. We shouldn't forget long ago when, well, he admitted that he stole a great deal from Bob Hope, who was the first one.
Oh, yeah. I see it now.
Right. And we'll talk about who you lifted from in a moment. But first,
Right.
Born in Jersey and then raised into Kansas, the city of
Overland Park, Johnson County,
as it were,
Lenexa. Yeah.
And growing up there, in your youth anyways, was there any sort of inkling towards this nuttiness that you're doing now?
Well, yeah.
Sometimes there's a moment.
Yeah, an actual moment. I don't know if there was a moment, but if there was a moment, maybe it was the birth of my sister.
Sure.
Though I was 2.5, but then again, all we look for is attention.
Yes.
Actors and comics and whoever.
It's
just we just need people to tell us that we're cute and we're worthy. And all of a sudden there was somebody else in the picture. My sister.
Horseshit.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, if I do this, people will, pay attention to me. I think that's probably, if there was a moment, it would be that one. Though I don't remember it.
Right.
But
that makes sense.
I would say that might have been the genesis, maybe.
Yeah.
And then the second moment when I heard Genesis.
Oddly enough.
Yeah, or Peter Gabriel Genesis.
Specifically.
When I was growing up, I was such a die-hard Steve Martin fan. Still am. And those records were a crucial part of my upbringing, I think. As a kid, I used to just go and listen to them in my room. And it's funny, that seems to be a kind of a common thread with a lot of people I've met, a lot of actors, a lot of comics. A
lot of people on the show.
Yeah, those records were major.
Listening to the albums on the piece of furniture known as a hi-fi.
That's right, yeah.
Let's compare that, of course, to the Nano, and you see where we've gotten. Straight to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
Well,
I say nodding my head as I got an iPhone on the first day.
The thing about the Steve Martin album, well, first of all, if you haven't, you have to read Born Standing Up.
Oh yeah, no, that was it's phenomenal.
And now I've recently heard that the book on tape of that, which is Steve speaking the book, is a must. But his story in particular from that book spoke to a whole generation where there weren't any comedy clubs and there weren't any venues really to fail on a regular basis like there are now. In terms of you, you hear Steve Martin, is your inkling at that point towards I want to be funny like he is, or I just like the idea of being funny?
I just always liked comedians and watching comedy and listening to comedy records. I had like Bob and Ray records and Mel Brooks.
Albert
Brooks, loved Albert Brooks. And, you know, I don't know if it had to do with just kind of, I moved around. I didn't go from New Jersey to Kansas and then stay there. I actually went from New Jersey. My dad used to work for TWA, and TWA's hub was in Kansas City.
You're on the plane with him every day.
So we went from Kansas. We moved from New Jersey to Kansas to California, back to Kansas. Then they wanted us to go to St. Louis, and they quit because we're tired of moving.
Sure.
But I don't know if the thing of always being in a new school or, you know, living in Kansas City and being Jewish with British parents had something to do with, you know, feeling the need to be accepted, and jokes would do it. It wasn't going to be sports with me.
No.
So
we tend to run the concession.
I remember I was a manager for the basketball team, and the reason I wanted to be the manager is because when this basketball team would travel to another school, everyone got off the bus, and all the basketball team had to wear a coat and tie.
Yeah.
I got to wear a coat and tie, walk off, and I thought maybe the girls that go to the other school will think that I'm on the team. This
guy gets off, this guy gets off.
That's the most sad, as I say it for the first time out loud in my life. That's just pathetic.
Oh my!
So
just a small example, ladies, of what we will go to the length to possibly get your attention. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that around that time I was interested in graphic art growing up. I loved drawing and all of that, but I was into
theater?
Not so much. Really like comedy and movies. I liked and thought for a while that I was going to maybe try my hand at comedy.
Did you actually ever get on stage?
I wrote like in high school. I kind of worked up a little bit of like a stand-up routine. I wrote some jokes, and I think I did it in my class.
Wholly original?
Yes, totally.
Not derivative of something Steve Martin had said?
No, these were my own jokes.
Was it relatable to your own life and things?
You know,
more of a have you ever noticed?
A little bit like that. Looking back, completely, you know, a high school kind of joke.
Please,
but I remember some of them being, you know, I think something was I was in the grocery store and I was looking at it had 2% milk. You know, what's the other 98%? I don't want to drink that. It was just cornball shit and just terrible. But
they never talk about the other 98%.
Yeah, there was something about at that time. I think there was a drink called Pepsi Free.
Sure.
Yeah. It's not.
No. Oh,
you know, I had a whole supermarket thing that I worked on.
I see. Your supermarket hunk.
Yeah. God, what were some?
So you got in front of the class.
I did it. Yeah. But then I think, as I got to be around 16, 17 years old, I started thinking more about actual acting and not so much stand-up or even like sketch comedy. I used to make a lot of short films and stuff in school. We had a radio and TV class, and my neighbor at the time had a son who was doing Broadway shows.
Jesus.
And he in New York, and he said, "Have you ever thought about being an actor? It seems like that might be something you'd be interested in." And I remember that moment pretty vividly in thinking, "Wow, yeah, maybe it is what I want to do." And I think from that moment on, that was going to be my course. So
I'm sorry, you took a question?
Yeah, I just don't think I ever really thought about acting,
right?
Like being a proper actor,
right?
And so when I
do you send that guy a check ever?
oh, we've lost touch.
I haven't changed. My friends have changed.
No, I get emails, and I just had delete. Yeah, I think around that time I started thinking seriously about actually acting, and then I went to the University of Kansas, and I was
theater major.
Yeah, and I was thinking about fine arts. I was thinking about graphic arts, and I actually for a while thought I was going to go to Cal Arts to study animation.
Sure.
I couldn't do it, and I couldn't afford the school, and then I said, oh, screw it, I'm going to study theater, because I really do think that is what I want to do. And then I started studying classical theater, and then literally because of, I'd say, Anchorman, and meeting Judd Apatow and Adam McKay and that crew, though I've always loved comedy, it was a career changer for me. And then I started working with those guys and doing a lot more comedy.
Yeah. Because we had hoped with your work on Sisters,
right,
that
sure,
you would see the calling to the comedy and make the transition then.
Yeah. Clearly I wasn't paying attention.
No, you were not reading the scripts as a rule. You were just showing up and saying, where's Cue Card Johnny?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have to ask about, do you miss the beatings that came with your first professional acting name, Paul Stephen Rudd?
You know, I hated having to go by Paul Stephen Rudd. Hated it.
Sure.
And the reason, and this is something for
the kids?
The kids that are taking a break from porn right now.
Don't get yourself.
The reason you see a lot of actors with 3 names is
Yes.
because their names were taken in the union,
Right.
in Screen Actors Guild, and we can't just use a middle initial anymore. And there was a Paul Rudd. There was an actor named Paul Rudd that was inactive in the union because he kind of retired from acting. Not related or anything, but he still held the rights to the name. So it was either change my name or go with my full name. And so I opted for my full name, although I spent many years thinking, if I change my name, what would it be?
Sure.
And
I was almost Kevin Kline.
really?
I was 11 years old, and it was a family name, a relative name, Kline, and because Pollak just felt too clunky. It's too clunky, Pollak. It's a fish. So I was going to be Kevin Kline when I was 11, and my mom said, no, you're not doing that.
You'll never make it as Kevin
That name
Kline.
will never be famous.
Won't work.
Are you insane? So did you toss around some names when they were?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Sure.
The best one that I had that I thought about for about, oh God, a while was Rudd Stevens. And thank God I, at the last minute, said, it sounds too porno-y and lame. Rudd Stevens, but it's like, can I do a hybrid? I could use my mother's maiden name, but that didn't feel, then all of a sudden the importance of your name, like stuff I'd never thought about before.
Did just Steve Rudd?
Steve, my cousin is Stephen Rudd. And I wasn't going to do that. And also I didn't want people calling me Steve.
No, you didn't.
No.
Not your name.
And I thought like, Palmer Rudd?
Sure.
Palmer Rudd, but then it sounds like, then it runs together and almost sounds like Polaroid. Palmer Rudd.
Paul F. Tompkins Rudd?
Palmeranian? Paul F. Tompkins Rudd. Yeah.
I'm surprised that one didn't come up.
Yeah, it didn't, God.
What was the name you used as a bar mitzvah DJ?
Rudd Stevens. I used
Jazzy Fresh Rudd?
I didn't have a bar mitzvah. I didn't have a name. I didn't have a name on the circuit. Although I did do this dance.
Dorky dance.
A dork dance.
Right.
Yeah, where it was I did that job for about a year and a half, and it used to just make me crazy at times. It's just really,
Was it that or a paper route? What were you?
Well, no, I was going to school. I could work. Bar mitzvahs generally a weekend.
Sure.
And I just kind of fell into it.
You knew what songs the kids were listening to?
Oh, can't touch this.
And then Havana Gila, right?
Yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
really. I mean, and you learn how to build a set
Did you?
it's like, all right, I'm gonna here's Glenn Miller. This is for the grandparents,
Right.
You know how to and then how to appease the kids.
Sure.
You learn how to read a room. And
I can't wait to see the playlist on your iPhone.
yeah, there's some pretty. It's eclectic. But I did this. I remember it was one day, and I was on the second bar mitzvah, going on about a 17-hour day. It felt like,
Oy.
and I was just losing my brains, and I was out in the dancing with these 13-year-olds, pretty much,
As it were.
And I mean, I was probably about 21, 22. And I just lost it and just started dancing so kind of spasmodically and stupid and kind of mocking the whole thing. And
The whole thing being white people dancing?
me dancing.
I see.
And just being a DJ at a bar mitzvah. And I was just like, so I started doing all of this stuff. And the kids thought it was funny and kind of cleared the floor.
That scene happened that we've seen in movies and
It was
television.
like, yeah, it was truly Saturday Night Fever, where everyone left. But instead of
being choreographed, it was you being a dork.
yeah, it was
It's interesting you say that because
Saturday Night Horror. Do you really?
Nope.
Damn,
That would've
I've
been
never seen tape. They have videographers out these things.
They
so.
must have.
Yeah, but I remember it was a hit. I couldn't stop because when the kids clear,
No, you're done.
my boss got on the microphone and said, "Hey, everybody, it's Donnie Dweeb."
Gave you a new moniker.
Gave me that coin, and it's like, first of all, if I chose the name, I wouldn't have gone that route.
No.
And then I think he might have thrown out some big sunglasses, like really just cheese it up even more. Those aren't funny.
No.
So the next week I was at another bar mitzvah, and these kids came up and said, "Hey man, aren't you the guy that does the dork dance?" And I said, "No, what are you talking about?" They said, "Last week
You tried.
at so-and-so, you did
Larry
this dance.
Feinberg's.
At Larry Feinberg's bar mitzvah, you did this dance." And then they went up to my boss and said, "We want to see the dance."
We paid for the dance.
And so my boss said, "You got to do it, man. You got to do it." And then so I went out there and I'm doing it, and I felt like Coco from Fame, crying and like just covering my breasts, and then it actually was finally the straw that broke the camel's back, because
What is it?
if you get requested to do a bar mitzvah as opposed to just kind of like going and just randomly DJing,
Right.
I get some extra money.
Sure.
And so I was getting requested with the condition that I had to do this dance. And then finally, like I just did it, and then it just became normal. And I had a friend that came into town, and I remember some friends, and we were going to go out some night. This was in Los Angeles, and we were going to the Magic Castle.
Of course.
So we were all in coat and tie, because you have to wear a coat and tie at the Magic Castle.
Right.
And I said I had been asked to do a bat mitzvah. And
Finally.
Yes. And I told my boss, I think a month in advance, weeks in advance, I wasn't going to be able to work this night because my friends were coming in from out of town. We were going out. And he said, "Look, will you just stop by the bat mitzvah to come in, do the dance? I'll give you $25, and then you can go on your way." So I said, "All right." So with my friends, we're in a car, and I said, "Look, we just got to stop by the Bellage or wherever it was."
Right. Probably was the Bellage.
Yeah, it probably was. And,
Why do we have to stop there, Paul?
And they're like, "I just got to do this thing for work," and they're like, "All right, yeah, cool, no problem." So I go in. We get there, we all go in. I don't even really tell them what I was doing. It wouldn't have even occurred to me, really, to tell them what I was doing.
No.
My boss says, "I'm going to introduce Paul. You guys can come in because you're all in suits. Come in like his henchmen."
Oh, my God.
And my friends were like, "What?
What's happening?
Yeah, and also, we don't want to be a part of this thing." So anyway, they call us in, they introduce me, and
Henchmen.
and they're my henchmen. And all of the people are sitting around. It's an empty dance floor. I take a chair out. I put a chair in the middle of this dance floor. There's a young girl sitting in it. And I essentially go on to give her a retarded lap dance. And people are, like, kids are laughing. The older set looks like confused, as they should and would. And my friend, I remember, it's like, and then it ended. I'm like, all right, and then I walk out into the lobby. Everyone's still inside. I walk out the lobby with my friends, and I'm like, all right, you guys ready? You're ready to go. And I just remember my friend Joe looking at me, kind of like ashen-faced, and no joke, I just said, what the hell just happened in there? And I looked at him, and all of a sudden it was, I said, I don't know. And that was it. And then that was it. I didn't do it anymore. I quit.
That was it. Again,
yeah,
in a moment. Yeah. A question has changed your life twice now.
Yeah, it's like I realized, like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Thunderbolt.
Yeah, perhaps if you had explained to them what was about to happen.
I don't think so. No. I think
you had an epiphany.
Yeah.
And that night at the Magic Castle, you got so drunk you saw saw dead people.
Yeah. But everybody does at the Magic Castle.
Yeah, they do. That's why it's magic. All right, so, oh God, that is pretty fantastic. That awkward lap dance that it evolved into.
It was, and it's like a 20-something-year-old guy just
gyrating in a bizarre way.
Like, yeah.
Around
the little 13-year-old girl in the middle of a dance floor around with hundreds of people.
Wasn't creepy at all for her.
Not at all.
By the way, with all the videographers that took place at all those bar mitzvahs, and your fame to date, it is shocking that a tape of this has not come forward.
Yeah, well,
if anyone out there has access, I will pay you $1,000.
Oh God, don't do
hard cash, and by $1,000 I mean
nothing.
Pesos.
Lira, Italian lira.
Yeah.
That
is shocking. That it really hasn't got me TMZ. My God, they would put a bounty on that just to.
Why did we bring it up? I've sat on it forever. I used to was always just.
You had the one thing.
Terrified to even talk about it in the
outside
on the off chance.
Let's talk about something that you'll be much. Well, we'll see. Should we go to the Stallworth versus Rice, Bradshaw versus Montana? Do you want to go there?
I can go there for sure.
All right.
I'll whatever you.
Raised in mostly the Kansas City area.
Yeah.
You become a uber fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's right.
Because.
I went to a Steelers-Rams game when I used to live before Kansas, I used to live in California, and I went when the Rams were still in L.A.
Right.
I went to a Steelers-Rams game with a guy who used to work with my father that was from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And we used to have football pencils in our school. They were like a dime, and I used to give this guy my Steelers pencils because he was from Pittsburgh, and I knew he was a fan. And so he took me to a game, and that was it.
You watched that team and you said, "Oh my God!"
Wow, yeah.
Because you didn't really have a team.
No, and I didn't. I didn't also know that much about football. My dad was never. The sports died when the Dodgers left Brooklyn for my father. So he was a history fanatic and was much more interested in, really history than football or anything. He didn't really care, like baseball, all right. But
Kansas City Chiefs did nothing for you.
Not really, no. I like them now.
Sure.
So when I left Kansas City, then I kind of became a fan. But no, when I lived in Kansas City, I was all Steelers.
Yeah. But you're more of a baseball fan anyway.
No, football.
Oh, really?
Although I'm a big baseball fan too. So
okay.
Baseball and football, not so much basketball.
Right. So Steelers, and then it was Stallworth for you.
Stallworth was my favorite player. Yeah.
Everyone was gravitating towards the Swan.
That was always my
your argument.
Yeah, I've always liked that. The guys that kind of show up, do their job. They're not. Everyone went with Swan. I mean, you had Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris. They were like great players. Mean Joe Green,
Steel Curtain,
Jack Lambert. I mean, all these Hall of Famers. Stallworth always seemed to me to be just as good as, and he's a Hall of Famer too,
Sure.
just as good as those guys, but he never ever got the press for it. I never saw him interviewed. He would never hot dog it, and everybody loved, I loved those guys too, but it was like, that guy just catches everything.
Right.
He's tall, but he catches ball, like he can catch a ball down like here where Swan jumps up 10 feet in the air. I just thought he was just really solid. And I liked that.
You've got a 2-minute drill that separates you from winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
You want Joe Montana in there or Terry Bradshaw?
Well, I mean, with the same, you mean the same team? Or
Same teams.
Same teams?
During each. I just like that it's a struggle for you.
It's
Because you're a pure fan of your team.
I do not, look, you got the catch, you got Rice, who's incredible. Montana was great. I'm going Steelers. I think the Steelers, I think the 70s Steelers were the best team in football.
Right. Well, you have to.
Well, I do. I mean, I think that, not just being a fan, I think that across the board, they had an amazing defensive, the whole steel curtain. You've got Mel Blount, who, the reason why I think all the rules favor the offense so much is because of the way Mel Blount played the game. You had Donnie Shell and Dirk Winston, great safeties, Mike Wagner. You had the best center in the game.
Which is why I specifically asked about the 2-minute drill offense.
Well, I mean, why would I choose the Steelers on a 2-minute?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is what all the questions, by the way, when I asked all the fans.
This is I think your fan in London right now is he's definitely.
If he doesn't answer the question about Stallworth, please ask him about the 2-minute drill if you could. No.
You got Bradshaw with a rocket arm. You got a great offensive line with the best center in the game.
Yeah.
You got Rocky Blyer and Franco Harris behind you. You got Benny Cunningham, who's a terrific tight end.
Options.
And you've got
too many options.
You've got so many options. Too many options.
Too many options.
That's why you choose the
It's
Niners.
an embarrassment of riches. Yeah. With the Niners, you just had Joe dropping back, who could literally do anything.
So I basically took 7 or 8 minutes to answer what you said in 3 words. No. Too many options.
As I mentioned at the outset, we're doing our first pre-taped show, but I didn't want to disclude our viewers, who are so great during the live broadcast to ask live questions of the guests.
Disclude.
That's not a word, in case you were
it's
wondering.
It's like exclude.
No.
But more...
You've just realized the fun of the Kevin Pollak Chat Show.
Great.
Normally, I have a crew that's sitting in the studio with me that are laughing uncontrollably.
Right, no, I hear it. I've heard it on previous telecasts.
Greg Proops, I said, what did I say? Something on his show, and he said, yeah, that's not a word. So I'm so happy that I was able to fulfill my obligation to destroy the English language. By the way, half British also. My grandfather raised in Leeds.
Really?
My mother's father. So you would think I would have some sort of knowledge of the King's English, but I tend to bring the not so clever Prince English.
You know who I think was also from Leeds? I think Scary Spice.
That is a correct answer.
Spice Girls movie? Another one I saw opening.
What choice did you have?
I had a lot of choices.
No, you didn't. Not in your heart.
No.
All right. I have a tweet 5 for you, Mr. Rudd. This one. Where's Dave Keckner, Johnny on the spot, with our graphic?
T5.
Look at him. T5. Look at that crazy pale face. Now we're going to talk about your experience working with that knucklehead. Mm-hmm. The tweet 5 is a rapid fire Coke or Pepsi type this or that, no correct answer.
Right.
And this one comes from at Adam Chitwood. Wayne or Apatow?
Pepsi.
Monica or Rachel?
Okay, so Wayne or Apatow?
Yeah, there's no wrong answer.
Oh, goodness.
I know. They like to make them hard, don't they?
That is a really...
ridiculous.
That's
you can't win.
No, that's lose-lose.
And
I don't mean lose-lose choosing one. Lose-lose being associated with you.
Yes. Enough said. Neither, I believe, is the answer. Monica or Rachel?
I think the answer would be Peter Weir.
That's it. Peter Weir to block.
Why Weir? Why Weir? Why is it the Weir came up?
Right?
Apatow, Wayne, they're both geniuses.
Monica or Rachel?
Chandler.
East or West Coast? Jesus.
Oh,
What's
boy.
happened?
Oh, gosh. You know what? I'm a fan of all kinds of rap.
In between. Yeah. Alien or Aliens? So really Paul Reiser or no Paul Reiser?
I like the one with Sigourney Weaver. And I'm not saying that to be politically correct.
No. Lastly, Armageddon or Deep Impact? Not an easy.
I'll tell you something. I haven't seen either.
Right.
But I have seen Glitter and the Spice Girls. You look into what I like to
Bing,
watch.
bing, 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 bing. We have a winner.
Yeah.
So there's been a few playwrights, directors, writers, creative folk who have decided, much like Mamet and Montaigne, that you are a muse.
Now let me ask you a question real quick.
Please.
2-minute drill. Who do you go with, Mamet or Joe Montaigne?
I would definitely go Montaigne.
More weapons.
More options. Yeah.
He's got
West Coast offense
got
created.
all of Chicago behind him. Don't tell that to Mamet.
No. We should do the next 3 minutes of the interview as Mamet, if you don't mind, by the way. If you don't mind. I'm asking you, do you mind? Do you mind that I'm asking you this question?
Mind? Do I fucking mind? Fuck. No, do I fucking mind? Do you mind?
That can't be your answer. When I ask you for an answer, are you prepared to give it to me?
You're asking me for an answer. I'm prepared to give an answer, but are you asking? I don't know.
Do you not hear the words that are coming from my face?
Do you not understand what I'm saying right now, at this moment?
Right.
I give an answer. You want an answer.
Yes. And scene. Shake it out.
These leads? These fucking leads?
Did you do that? No. They did a reprisal.
No, I did not. I saw it.
Did you?
It was great. Yeah.
Is that
Liev Schreiber, amazing.
right?
Just amazing.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
On stage.
Crazy good on stage.
Yeah.
The whole cast was. It was a great show.
Least favorite of the cast, though, if you had to.
Boy, it's a tough because it was all around great, great show.
Right. Yeah. Don't answer the question.
I don't want to answer
No,
the
you
question
can't.
because I'm,
No, please.
I hope to work with everyone involved.
Was there a point where you moved to New York and pursued the theater that was a scary transition?
Well, I did it a little backward, I suppose, because I moved to New York. I've lived in New York for almost 15 years, I guess.
Right.
I don't live in California.
Right.
I used to live in California. I lived there for a few years, and got out of school and actually found some work pretty quickly.
In Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, and a few years into my
And by work you mean?
I worked at Bennigan's for a while, and I DJ'd for Mrs. But I got some commercials and got into the union.
Right.
And Sisters was my first acting job.
Okay.
I had a few weird ones, but I was able to get like kind of a job here and there over the course of a couple years, and then eventually, Clueless got the job in the movie
Which was
Clueless,
huge.
which was huge and a huge break.
Right.
As soon as I finished shooting that movie, I moved to New York because I also wanted to do theater.
Right.
When I was on Sisters, it was my first job. I got a paying job. I left. I was a recurring character. I was not contractually obligated to take to work on it if I had something else.
Sure. Didn't have to be there every week.
Right. I the second season I was on, and I left because I went to Oxford to study Jacobean drama. And my agents were miffed. I said, "What? Wait a minute. You want to go study in Oxford Jacobean drama as opposed to actually getting paid and being on a television show in a career that you actually want to pursue?"
Right.
And I said yes. And they thought I was nuts. And now looking back, I realize, oh, I see why they thought I was nuts. But
what was the mindset?
All the actors that I really admired did theater. I wanted to learn Kevin Kline,
Sure.
being one of Pacino, Paul Newman, Marlon Brando. They all, it was that everyone kind of came up that way. And I also thought, I loved like Tom Hulce and David Strathairn. Those guys were big. I'm big fans of theirs. But I thought that I want to get better.
Right.
And that's the way to get better.
You didn't think staying on Sisters
was going to do anything to help me. I might learn some tricks for a camera, but I didn't think it would help me become a better actor.
Right.
So I went that route. After Clueless, I moved to New York because I wanted to do theater, and I wanted to live in New York, and I didn't want to just, try and get another job in a movie or something. And,
sure.
And so that's what I did, and then I got into a play. I got a Broadway play, not that long after Clueless, and I did it for a year.
Yeah.
And it was amazing and an incredible experience, but and one that I specifically moved here for, and continued to do plays over the following decade.
The play that you did, this was in 2000? No, this was in
96, 96, 97, something like that, I think.
This is The Last Night at Ballyhoo?
Yes.
Right. And in 98 you returned to do 12th Night. Was that Lincoln Center?
Yeah.
Right. But Ballyhoo you did
Ballyhoo?
you did for a year.
Yes.
So you had not only your first Broadway experience, but a long run.
Yes. I will say, though, that after I did it, I was in the show for about 6 months.
Right.
And I got a job on The Object of My Affection, which was a movie that Nick Heitner directed.
You left the production and came back.
And left the production and came back. Although I had turned it down at first because I didn't want to leave the production because I was just loving it. I really loved it.
Yeah.
But the chance to work with Nick Heitner, which was huge for me because I had seen I loved the madness of King George, but I actually saw that as a play when I was in London studying Jacobean drama in Oxford. I remember going to London on a weekend and seeing The Madness of George III, and it was the greatest experience I'd ever had in a theater.
Oh my God.
It was honestly, I remember that, seeing that show, and I thought, in a way, the first time in my life, I thought, I get it. That
finally makes sense.
I can't believe I just saw people do that in front of me.
Right.
Something must have happened. They can't do that. It can't be like that every night.
I actually had that with James Earl Jones in Fences. I had a similar experience. Because I came from stand-up comedy, my experience was abject fear. Mm-hmm. And I called the only person I knew in New York at the time, who old stand-up from stand-up comedy days, Dana Carvey, was here doing Saturday Night Live, and I called him during intermission and said, I can never call myself an actor. That's it. It can never, ever happen. I will never call myself an actor. And he said, where are you? What's the matter? And I said, I told him where I was, James Earl Jones and Fences. And he said, don't worry about it. We're comedians. And that sort of stayed with me forever. Did this experience you had of seeing this play crystallize your focus in terms of what you wanted to do, or was it so intimidating?
I was focused. I was focused then. I knew that was what I wanted to do.
You had made the commitment, for God's sake.
Absolutely.
You had moved to.
Yeah, but I. Yeah,
I mean, how did it transform you as a?
Well, I remember, thinking that it was so resonant, and it was had such a profound effect on me in a way that, as a movie fanatic, a movie actually hadn't. Not that I didn't love movies; it was just the idea that somebody was just doing it right in front of me.
Right.
And I remember details of the play. Still I think back, and it sits with me in a way that even something as phenomenal as The Godfather doesn't. It occupies a different space.
The live performance.
And I just it just knocked me out, and it got me really, instead of it intimidating me and saying like I'll never be that good, and I know I won't. It was actually more motivation and enthusiasm to be able to try and do.
Well, you were already there applying yourself. You'd committed yourself to it against your agent's wishes.
Right.
So, yeah, I imagine it acted more as fuel that someday I could possibly
Just thought, what an amazing
do that.
What an
There's something,
amazing
even though you know they're doing 8 shows a week, there is something about that live show that makes the audience feel like they're seeing something that's never going to happen again and hasn't happened yet.
And it's true, and it's different. Having done 8 shows a week, I know that they're different. They feel different, each one. I remember before I ever did a long run, I remember I'd see a play and think, God, how do they do it 8 times a week? And then months later, I would just be, at a restaurant somewhere and think, God, they're still doing that show. How do they do? Like, since I saw it, it's now 3 months later. Those people are still doing that show, and they've been doing it every day. That sounds like punishment.
Let's talk about the first 6 months of the run before you took the time off to do the Heitner film.
Yeah.
This was your first run on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the longest run, I have to assume, that you had done in any play.
Yep.
So I've been asked to do a couple times, and it was like a 9-month run was what they asked me to sign up for. And I thought, well, the first 3 months it'll be the greatest experience of my life, because I came from stand-up comedy, and the idea of saying the exact same words in the same order and making them fresh every night in my performance, but not really being ever able to change the words. As a comedian, this is prison, in a sense, in the mindset, having not had the formal training. So the first 3 months would be heaven on earth. The middle 3 months would be, I can definitely get through this. And then the last 3 months, a gun in my mouth each night before I went on stage.
Right.
Because, again, of the reasons that I gave. But you having this training, and then the realization of actually being in a successful run in your Broadway debut, that's got to carry like lightning before you know it. The first 3 months are over.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the play. I loved the people that were involved in the play.
Right.
It was all so new and exciting. I felt a part of a community and a part of something that was much bigger than I had ever felt. I mean, even like in Los Angeles, you work on a television show or whatever. It's all, it's each thing kind of exists as an island. Something about doing a play in New York, and you feel as if, oh my God, this is part of New York's identity. I can't believe it. There's a sense of history. And that's an incredible feeling. Walking to rehearsal every day with like coffee in the morning, my script, and I loved all of that. It was just awesome, and it carried through to the play. And then I actually went all the way up into the Tony Awards. I won the Tony Award for Best Play, and then the next day I had to start on the movie. So that was a real bummer. I mean, like all of a sudden people are now going to really come and want to see the best play, and so I was off for a few months, and then was able to come back, which was cool.
It's interesting. You said the thing about the difference of working on the TV show out in Los Angeles. What I just realized as you were saying that was when you're doing the TV or the movies, they're constantly breaking the fourth wall and reminding you that you're at play, at acting. And none of this is happening. And let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. And there's something about actually getting lost in the play on stage where you are never going to break that fourth wall.
Right.
Ever. And you actually can get lost in the moment for that 2 whatever hours the performance is.
Yeah.
That television and film will never understand as a performing experience.
Well, it's weird. I mean, sometimes even major things would happen, like mistakes or sounds from a theater, and
someone in the audience having a heart attack. I mean, anything.
Which I think happened during that show. And it's like, oh God, according to all the training and classes I've taken, you're not supposed to react to any of that. You can't. And there was one scene in the play where like the whole set fell apart, and the things there were these streamers that were hanging from the rafters, and they go up, and the next scene takes place in a house, and apparently those streamers got caught in some lights, and I walked in to the next scene, and it's a really serious climactic part of the show, and I walk in and there's a house filled with streamers and broken glass everywhere, and I mean, do you ignore that? How do you kind of...
What did you do?
I totally ignored it.
Right.
And which made it hilarious, I'm sure.
As you're stepping over.
Now I think I would handle it differently. Then I was just too panicked. I was like way too nervous.
How do you handle it differently now?
I don't think it'd be as, I think I would have to acknowledge there's a streamer hanging down in the middle of my face, which there was. I would probably make a joke about it and just be like, oh, you know what? Everyone's noticing this. This is just, this is kind of funny. Plays that actually, I don't look for that kind of thing to make a comment on, but plays that I've done subsequently.
Right.
There have been a moment or two where it was impossible not to acknowledge.
Right, and the audience, of course, loves it.
And that was, I learned that. I think it just kind of comes with being a little more relaxed, maybe, a little more.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So from the Heitner movie, you go back to the play, but there's a sense now that the motion picture business would like you to come back, and as much as you're enjoying the stage work in New York.
Well, I don't know if the motion picture business really wanted me.
No, the heads of the 5 families got together, the brothers Warner.
Okay,
said,
all right.
Get this kid here now.
Yeah.
But, I always liken it to the sense of doing stand-up comedy is so more fulfilling on a every single night way, whereas 11 of the 12 hour working on a movie, you're sitting in the trailer, and I'm not even sure it's a job, and unless you literally go around knocking on trailer doors and finding a way to hang out or just hang out on the set.
Right.
There is the sense of community, the sense of all that, but in terms of rewarding and a certain sense of, like you had maybe in that first 6 months of Ballyhoo, of that belonging, that this is what it's supposed to be, finally.
Yeah. Feeling a part of something.
Right. As movie opportunities or what have you are coming your way after having this successful run, what is the sense? I'm just going to do both of them. This will be great. I'll go back and forth.
Well, that was always the goal.
Right.
But
always with a sense of coming back to the theater?
Well, yeah, and always my goal was, and still is, to do things that seem like they'd be fun to do.
Right.
And work with people that I admire and like, and try and kind of eke out a career on my own terms as much as it's possible, which it isn't completely possible. But and so, I thought, all right, I want to try and do interesting things, and then Wet Hot American Summer was actually one of the first things that I'd ever read that I thought, oh my God, this is different than this. Seems like funny to me.
Right.
And I knew who Dave and Wayne. I knew those guys were because I knew The State, which was their comedy troupe, and that was, in a way, kind of one of the first experiences I had where I thought, like, oh my God, this feels like I'm making movies with my friends, and this is my own sensibility, my own kind
comedic
of take, and that was a major thing for me, like a major experience and all of it, and
the same thing sort of occurs with the Apatow family.
Yeah, very much so. I think that like with Anchorman, I think I got that job with the help of Wet Hot American Summer, which was a movie that a lot of comedy writers like,
right?
And Adam McKay was one of them. But I auditioned for that, got that job, and
boy, the sense of play.
That was something that was new on Anchorman. Wet Hot American Summer was pretty tightly scripted.
Right.
Anchorman, there was a lot of let's just play around with it, and Will Ferrell loves to change stuff up, and that was.
It seems like every button to a scene, or every blow off, or sometimes even the middle, they'll say, let's do like 10 versions of that, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, normally it's, you do a scene and there is a script. The script for Anchorman was hilarious. You work on a scene, you shoot it a bunch as scripted, and then there's a little bit of time left over, and they say, okay, let's play around. Now you get to do, with comedies generally,
Right.
It seemed like it was the opposite. It's like, all right, we'll just do it one time. We got it as scripted. Now let's just goof around.
Right.
I had done a movie before Anchorman called The Chateau that was totally improvised, dialogue-wise. I mean, we'd written out a synopsis, but there was no dialogue written, and it was completely improvised, and it was really thrilling and super fun, and I loved working like that. And there were elements of that all of a sudden here in Anchorman, I'm getting to do this I mean, we shot The Chateau on camcorders.
Right.
This is real. Those are real movie projectors.
But think about the timing of that education from the plateau that happened prior to.
It helped, and then since Anchorman, and then 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up and Judd and the way he likes to shoot stuff, and then working with a lot of the same people, it's been an amazing ride. And I have I think a little bit of that feeling that you were saying about doing comedy every night, and you're not just sitting around for 12 hours.
Right.
I mean, there's something creatively fulfilling about these movies and these comedies in particular they're so fun.
Yeah. Well, there's a sense for we fans who love those comedies that you guys are hanging out and palling around quite a bit while you're making them. You have to be. The chemistry is so ridiculous.
I
people
think
hold
that's
up
the
on their
case.
trailers, or they're really...
No, everybody's just kind of like hanging out,
Right.
and I think there's friends will see each other outside of shooting the movie, which doesn't always happen.
No, that's such a rare thing I've
yeah.
found working on movies, when there are these social gatherings outside of the workday. I mean, the first one for me was when I was brought up to the majors with A Few Good Men from the minors, and I'm surrounded by the biggest stars of the day. And when they would invite me to someone's house for somebody's birthday on the weekend during the shooting, I literally, there was the thought in my mind, well, I might show up and they'll throw me a vest and ask me to help park cars. That's how out of place I felt.
Right.
While they were making me feel welcome, I couldn't help but feel that way. But it was the first sense of, wow, so everyone's just going to kind of pal around, and it's not just, you've been hired to do this job and you better do a damn good job at it.
Right.
But then you're on other movies and you realize, wow, that's really so much fun over there.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's all very serious, and I guess it helps you to appreciate those
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But you found a couple of people, I mean, Neil LaBute comes to mind in terms of people using you repeatedly, or you being amused of I'm doing the research. There was a few articles where he was talking about, people expect this sort of nice, likable guy, and he likes to turn that a bit on their ear with you and his work.
Yeah.
How did that relationship first start?
Well, we met he wrote a play called Bash.
Right.
That I did here with Callista Flockhart and Ron Eldard, and they were these monologues, really. And he wrote this play. He didn't direct it. Joe Mantello directed it, but I met him during this time, and he was involved and really liked him.
Right.
We hit it off immediately, and it turns out that we were actually both at the University of Kansas at the same time. He had gone there to get a master's degree, and I was a freshman, and was actually in a play that he saw, which is really weird. Crazy.
Outliers.
Yeah, right? And we both played professional hockey together, of course, both of us born January 14th. So that's a joke for anyone who's read Outliers. They're really...
for the 9 of you that are watching right now.
Enjoying that. But now I'm thinking 10,000 hours of rehearsal.
He remembered you, but it's so true, though.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
But he remembered you from that, or no?
Well,
that was just something that came up?
I think he did. He realized, and I don't think he probably pieced it together until we were talking, because all I could think of is, had he seen that show, there's no way he'd want me to do Bash.
Right.
It was Macbeth, and there were two Macbeths, good Macbeth and bad Macbeth.
Guess which one you were doing?
Good Macbeth. And it was the most experimental college, like hilarious version of Macbeth. And but I thought he was so funny, and I was a fan of In the Company of Men. I knew his movies, and I loved Bash. I loved what we were working on. And then
3 one-acts, is that what it was?
Yeah.
They were just monologues?
Yeah. And mine was, Callista and I had ours together where it was about a psychopath, really, gay bashing. And we were both telling, recounting like the evening's events, but from 2 totally different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And the guy is like this good, seems like a pretty decent guy who's clearly has some serious issues with homosexuality and winds up beating somebody to death. And it was just, it was just a really...
So it was hilarious.
It was like a feel-good kind of... I think of it more really as just like a classroom experience. You know, it's like really, people really learned something.
Right. But you guys, you passed out a little bit during that. But
And so we hit it off, and we actually
hit it off,
and we worked together. Still, I mean, I love Neil. I think he's great. I always want to work with him.
And you did the play in New York, L.A., and London.
We did Bash in New York and then L.A.
Right.
And then we did another play called Shape of Things, which we started in London.
Okay.
And then did in New York after that run, which came about, just wasn't part of the plan, but then it moved, and that was really great. And during that run, he had the idea to make it into a movie.
Right.
So then we shot a movie of it. And I've done, other plays and all sorts of like readings and benefits and
with him.
Yeah.
The experience of taking a play to a movie?
It was that one was it was really a trip because we had done the show for so many months,
right?
And almost a year, I guess. And by that point, you could do this show in your sleep. You know, you know everybody's lines, and then other things just are built in with. Oh, I know I turn this way when I say this line. You know, you just know the move. You know, it's good to shake that up, but we couldn't do that in the movie, and for time there were cuts that had to be made. So it took a lot of getting used to.
There were pieces missing.
Yeah, just all of a sudden Rachel Weisz would say this line, and my response was actually the line that I say 10 lines from now, and then trying to remember that and actually kind of pay attention to the new version of it as opposed to the theatrical version of it. It was
truncated.
It was a little challenging.
Yeah. Let's bring the viewers in, if we may. This is a straight-up question from at Miss Ma'am.
Something tells me you got that wrong.
All right, Mr. Smarty Pants.
How would you say that?
That's Miss Ma'am.
As opposed to what I said. Do you prefer the straight-laced leading man roles or quirky supporting roles, or do you think you can have success fusing them? They are certainly wholly separate demands, and the reason I chose Jack Lemmon rather carefully, other than the obvious reasons, was, to me, Lemmon and Matthau both, for that matter, had that rare leading man status of sorts, who got to do a comedy, and the most ridiculous silly comedies and the most intense moving drama, which is not allowed too often these days.
Yeah.
That any one actor gets to do both.
I would love to do that. I would love to do both. I
Right.
want to do everything. I don't know if I'll be given the opportunity or.
Well,
if,
so
or,
far you've had to do the stage.
Yeah,
for
but
the
that's
dramatic.
a little. I think a little different.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, Tom Hanks made the transition. I think people
Sure.
looked at him differently after Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But he's always just a great actor. I would love to get some of those opportunities. I certainly love many different types of things.
It's so hard. It's so damn difficult.
Yeah, and it's also
also what it takes just to get a name for doing the comedy.
I wonder. Do you think it's easier if you're somewhat established as a dramatic actor and then all of a sudden you show up in a comedy and people accept that more, or do you think it's...
If you use De Niro as the example, when he shows up at Midnight Run,
yeah,
it seems like such an outrageous leap for this great dramatic actor to be that organically funny.
Yeah.
In reverse, I think that it's going to be, oh, this guy's taking himself seriously. You know.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the actor that wants to be a musician. Like, come on. But if a musician does it and connect, like, hey, that's pretty cool.
Right. No, seriously.
I mean, like, I wonder, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. No, it also lends itself to a nice Twilight Zone episode. If they just take me seriously, and then no one ever laughs at anything you ever say again.
Yeah. I'm happy to work. If no one ever buys me in a dramatic role, then I will just keep making fart jokes until I can't walk anymore.
It works 100% of the time, 40% of the time? Is that what it was?
60%. They've done studies. 60% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah.
I think it's
was that an improvise, or was that particular line written?
No, that one was that was an improvise. I think the only thing I remember in saying it was, well, I kept thinking of Billy D. Williams doing those Colt 45 ads, which I was always amazed at, because there was something kind of just so gross about that character in Anchorman, and he just seems about like, Billy D. Williams just, Colt 45 works every time. And literally, it's just, he's saying, this will get a woman drunk so that you can have sex with her.
It was a roofie. You were talking about a roofie.
Yeah, so that was, and then I think 60%. And I remember thinking like, oh, maybe that'll make Will Ferrell laugh, because he's so good at keeping it together, and I suck. I laugh at everything. And I remember saying that, and then he just looking at me. He didn't laugh, and he just said, that doesn't make any sense. And I fucking lost it. I was laughing.
So the idea there was to just break him. If I could just break this.
It wasn't the idea, but it was a real, real victory.
Yeah.
You know, that's, and Carell too. All three of those guys, you know, they all have that background. They're really good at kind of keeping it together. But yeah, there was that feeling of if you could make Will Ferrell laugh,
right,
then it's, and especially me, who wasn't, I had no one really knew me in comedies or that kind of thing. And,
right.
And
that was a big thing.
It was a big thing for me, and I was just so elated that I got the job, and that I was hoping to just not embarrass myself in front of like those kind of powerhouses. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah, they were just.
To hold your own in that company is the success.
And I also knew, like, you know, people say, well, God, a lot of people hadn't seen Steve Carell before that, or they hadn't seen Dave Koechner. They'd seen Will. But as you know, you were in the comedy world, I knew exactly who those guys were.
Right.
I'd seen Koechner in Naked Trucker so many times and thought, Jesus, man, his T-Bones is hilarious. The stuff he'd done with David Cross, and he was in the Mr. Show movie and was hilarious in that.
Crazy funny.
Crazy funny. And Carell, I loved on The Daily Show, and always thought, that guy is so freaking funny.
You're probably walking into the job on Anchorman thinking, how am I going to do this?
Yeah,
in terms of admiring everyone's work from a comedic level. But again, did you find inspiration in that? Like you said you did in the London theater?
Yeah, well, inspiration, and just I was excited to work with them, and in that way, and not, you know, I wasn't intimidated debilitatingly so.
Right.
Like and that
was a healthy sense.
Yeah, I think so, and that actually happens too with, I think, most people that I've worked with some pretty amazing people, and people that I am kind of speechless around. But when you're actually doing something, some of that actually goes away, and you're kind of just opposite somebody, and then they'll cut, and then you think, oh my God, that's Paul Newman, or like, that's Jack Nicholson. That's, you know.
Yeah. In Casino, I had the one scene where just me and De Niro sitting at a table, and there was constantly a version of me floating overhead saying, would not shut up screaming, "Can you believe this? Can you believe this?"
When you were actually filming, was it going on while you were doing the scenes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried so hard to be in the moment, but it took several takes for that voice to stop screaming.
It is true. It doesn't completely go away. I think I'm probably being a little, cavalier about this.
No, I didn't have training. You had it should be.
Yeah, but there's there are. I don't know, even have training. There are some people where, and De Niro would certainly be one of them, where you just think, oh my God, that's Robert De Niro.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's Dave Koechner as T-Bone for the Tweet 5 graphic. They're right on it. Look at them. Look at them. They're all over it. That's impressive.
There he is.
He's doing it as T-Bone. You can't hear because it's annoying when the volume's in the room. At Matt Rappaport. There he is. Now I hear it. Fine. Another Tweet 5 for you. On tap. Sullivan's Guinness. We need to get the Sullivan's pub, please. Or Sam Adams. That's impressive.
Oh, Guinness.
Right?
Yeah. No, no question.
Mad Men, Breaking Bad.
Well, I would say Mad Men, because it is a great show, and I love John Hamm. Breaking Bad, I just got the DVDs. I just bought the boxes. I haven't seen it.
So you're new to it.
I'm new to it. Though everybody I know says it's incredible.
Yeah. I wish people would shut up already, quite frankly, and just let me watch.
Well, that's why I haven't watched it.
Right.
I'm just sick of the Breaking Bad frenzy.
The
inescapable frenzy. It is.
Yeah, they won't shut up.
Cranston's bad.
Yeah. Streamies or Razzies? Oh, that's not fair.
Are those now the Streamies are the Internet Awards.
You're now involved in a Streamy Award-winning show.
This won the Streamy.
It did, yes. I think that's why my balls are being busted here.
I think Streamy. You know what? I don't want to toot my own horn, but please let me toot my. I'm doing it. I want a Streamy.
Right?
Wainy days.
Please. You did win.
Yes, I did.
Hello,
fellow Streamy winner. Are you feeling Streamy?
I do.
I'm streaming right now.
Yeah. Believe me, it has a prominent home on the mantle. They got you. This guy really did his research. Funnier, bar mitzvah DJ or dramatic Lillard?
Well, Matt Lillard was my roommate at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Maybe that's...
He's done his research. Yeah. So, funnier to you, the bar mitzvah DJ or dramatic Lillard? He doesn't seem to be giving a lot of respect to the dramatic talents of Matthew.
I'd have to go bar mitzvah DJ. Yeah.
And finally, Schmo or Cox?
Schmo or Cox? Cox?
Given the research, I foolishly assumed you would know what the hell he's talking about.
No.
Offering up an
but anytime you could just go Cox?
Yeah, that's the winner. That's in fact that's.
What am I going to go Schmo?
That's the bite. Another quick tweet 5 from at Wizzy. Barbecue ribs, pork or beef?
I go beef.
Beer or wine? Right?
Jesus, that's tough.
I didn't think that'd be the one that would stump you.
No, that's really tough. I mean, I love beer, I love wine, I love scotch and whiskeys. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm going to have to go with a Cosmopolitan.
Stage or screen?
Screen.
Glasses or contacts?
Cox.
And the same answer again for beard or clean shaven.
Oh, clean shaven, hands down.
Clearly. You working again with Steve Carell in the Dinner for Schmucks coming out the end of July. Tell us a little bit about the film. I don't know much about it, other than that it's a remake of a French film. Right.
Which is very different.
Let's hope.
Yes, it's...
less subtitles?
less subtitles.
In this country?
Yes, exactly. In France, this is going to be... You'll see a lot more with Dinner for Schmucks. A beloved French film.
Much.
And subversive and dark. This one not as much because it's the American version.
Sure. Made by a studio.
But it's also very different. The French version is smaller in scale. It mostly takes place in one room, and here this is actually it's so different that they're encouraging us to say inspired by.
Right.
But that's good. But it's actually, I wouldn't even say that it's even a marketing ploy to say inspired by.
Clearly it is.
They're saying it's so, and I know it's so different that
right.
it's, that being said, the general premise is the same, which is there's a dinner that goes on every month, and it's in Dinner for Schmucks, it's within the context of a company. I work for a company. I want to get ahead in the company, and I get this opportunity to join the elite, the upper echelon of like these kind of, these move up to the 7th floor. Executives, and I find out that there's this dinner. I get invited to this dinner that's very secretive, and they all go out and try and find the biggest idiot they can find, invite them to dinner, and it's a competition. They don't tell the idiots. They're treated to a free dinner, and it's they don't know any better, and I get this opportunity, and I'm a little morally opposed to it, but I also want to get ahead. And my fiance, or girlfriend, I guess,
wonderfully portrayed by
Stephanie Shostak.
I'll say,
beautiful, beautiful, talented actress. She's against it.
She tries to show you the light.
She just thinks it's mean, which it is, and yet I kind of am hoping to have my cake and eat it too. Speaking of French, anyway, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. But then I meet Steve Carell, divine intervention. I hit him with my car, and he's standing in the middle. He's run out in the middle of the street to pick up a mouse that's dead because he does taxidermy on mice, and kind of creates dioramas and makes these historical settings.
That's not going to be funny at all.
And he's a total weird guy, and I think it's a message. God wants me to go, and so he then kind of comes into my life and pretty much just ruins everything in it within 24 hours.
Fantastic. And where did you shoot this?
In Los Angeles.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
And who directed this?
Jay Roach directed it.
Oh, my goodness. Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents.
The Mike Myers.
Yes.
With the
Austin Powers, Mystery Alaska. Recount, another.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a very versatile and talented
He's
guy.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
And how was it working with him?
Amazing.
Easy and freedom?
So much. He really encourages that. He's also known pretty much across the board as one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And he is. He's very collaborative. He's very, very nice. Just a very kind person, but also really intuitive and smart when it comes to directing, too, because he understands things with editing, and I think he used to be an editor. He understands things about the technical aspects that I was blown away by.
Does that come through during the shooting?
Yeah, and
in what way?
Well, just like in a position or something, he's positioning the camera. He would just, and we had a great DP that he's worked with before, but just little things of like, well, if we do this, what do you think about this, Jim? If we move the camera here, we can do this, and then we can cut it in with this and this. And he goes, and then you can edit. He would just talk in ways that were very technical, but not in a gross way. It was just kind of like almost as asides, and
he's cutting in the camera.
Absolutely,
right.
Yeah. And he's stealth funny and smart. And any time that, there would be some scene that we would do, or some sort of improvisation or whatever it was, and then he would watch it back sometimes on the monitor.
Right.
He would say, I like this because then this moment right here, and it would be something very subtle. But I remember Steve and I both having, many moments where it's like, yeah, absolutely, that's...
Go with the subtle.
There was incredible trust there. I just thought, oh, God, both Carell and I felt, oh, we're really in safe hands here, because he's just such a smart guy.
It makes or break the experience. There's no question about it.
Hands down.
And the really dry directors who don't seem to have much of a sense of humor, or it is their sense of humor not to put it forward, it's difficult to get a sense of what it's going to be. There needs to be more trust.
Yeah.
But there's a little less faith organically during the process.
Yeah, I like joking around. I love it on a set when it's just like a lot of joking around, and people that are, do work and take it seriously. But I love when the director can totally make jokes and seems relaxed and is and funny and one who's like own kind of comedic sensibility I jibe with. I don't know. I feel maybe a little more comfortable.
I learned early on from a director, if you're not having fun, what the hell's the point? Why are we here?
Right.
Truly, no matter what, whether it's dramatic or what.
Hands down, man. It is a fun, silly, like lucky way that we make a living. It should be fun.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
You mentioned,
and it's also important to remember that 99% of the world doesn't care about it. Like everyone's such self-importance on acting and movies, and I feel I sometimes catch myself even in our conversations here where I'm going on about some of this stuff, and I think, dude,
nobody cares.
No one cares.
Well, I think you're right. The instinct that you have that I agree with in terms of the craft, or even people who use the word craft, can be too self-involved. But the fact that it's even going off on your brain as an alarm is a very good sign.
Well, I will never. I hate when people say like craft. The craft, or what's your technique?
Is there anything worse than listening to actors talk about acting? Oh my God! No.
Well, let's hope not, because then we'll have no show.
No, but this is about your personal experiences. No.
The other thing too, we called an artist. Well, as an artist, I'm not an artist. Picasso is an artist.
You're right. I'm a dancing dork.
Yeah,
that's all I ever want to be, and I can't believe I'm getting away with it. And it's all fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, honestly, I wait the first, used to be 2 weeks, now it's the first 72 hours on the set of any film for someone to tap me on the shoulder and go, oh, no. Oh, we made a horrible error. You're not supposed to be here at all. We met Kevin Spacey. You need to come with me. So, yeah, there's a sense of play or Jesus, get the hell out. But you mentioned about the trust that forms from working with a director whose sense you connect to. You've now written or rewritten some of the films. Certainly Role Models was a sense of that. Let's talk a little bit about the studio saying to you, well, we'd love you to do this movie, but we'd also like you to rewrite the script. And then that will lead me to the next bit, which is that annoying, someday I want to direct, but people either have that in them or they don't. But in terms of the writing, you'd been doing that anyway.
Yeah, but not quite like I did on Role Models, which literally was hired by the studio to write it, why or how, it was Mary Parent was the executive that did that, and I mean, I'm forever grateful. It was...
You wrote it with a partner?
Yeah, well, I wrote it, and then David Wayne came on to direct it, and then David Camerino and I worked on it together. In a script that I had rewritten it, and then we all three worked on it, and then kind of they were tweaked and all of that stuff. Yeah, but
did you have a sense?
There were writers before, and there was a great writer named Eitan Cohen that. Worked with a couple days. Evan Goldberg worked for a few days with, friends of mine, people I know. How it happened was there was just a script. It was called, at the time, Big Brothers.
Yeah. And
I did a reading of it, and I thought the idea of it was really funny. Like guys that get in trouble and then don't want to go into a Big Brothers type program and are awful to the kids. I was like, that's a good premise, but there was, when I had read it, the script was being rewritten. I think I'd gone through a few different things and a few different writers and versions, and I read this one version and was just talking to Mary Parent. She said, "What do you think of this?" And I said, "Well, if you do this, it will just work better from a structural point of view. And then I think these two characters should be very different. They should, and then you could." I came up with some ideas, and she just said, "Well, do you want to write it?" And I don't know. I said, "Okay," but I don't know why. I mean, honestly, I was kind of.
Was there a nanosecond before you said okay? That there were some things going on in your mind? Or was it an instant okay?
No, it wasn't an instant okay, but I didn't belabor it or really think, oh God, do I want to do this? I really want to.
Or say yes first.
I mean,
and think about
I've
it
written
later.
stuff before, and I like writing.
Sure.
And I thought that, I didn't think it would be that tricky because I could see in my mind what I would maybe want it to
Clearly,
be.
yeah.
And
a challenge.
And it was a challenge, yeah, and a fulfilling, and it was. I remember going into it thinking, I wish we had a little more time.
Right.
Because it was, we're writing a lot in a short amount of time, and we knew we had this start date that had already been pushed back. But I remember thinking, God, if we just had 3 more weeks, but we couldn't.
Right.
But I don't know. Sometimes that's not such a bad thing either.
Well, it was hilarious, and Sean William Scott, who I've now worked with as well.
Yeah.
A more genuine guy.
Yeah.
You won't find.
Yeah, he's a super sweet guy. Isn't
Unbelievable.
He? Yeah.
And the directing question.
Yeah, I like writing, I think, more than the idea of directing right now. Maybe it would have to be something, a story that I'd really, really want to tell. I don't want to just direct something for the sake of directing it, because it's just so long. It's such a commitment. I mean, it takes such a long time.
Yeah, and the idea that directors have to keep the big picture in their mind every second of every day,
Yeah.
whereas actors, we just get to keep that day's work in our mind.
Yeah,
I
mean, I'm not.
Play.
I'm a big fan of time off and sitting around. I don't like to work too hard. I really don't.
One wouldn't know, based on the constant working.
It seems like it, doesn't it? I know you never know when the release dates are going to be, but I haven't I've been off. I haven't shot anything for about 6 months. Right
Feels
now.
good.
It's been great.
Yeah.
I know that sounds horrible to say, and really oh God, I've had time off.
Oh no, it didn't come off that way.
Again, that's that thing of just could I sound like more of a pompous dick?
Yeah, you could. Actually, I think you need to try a little harder at the pompous thing. It's not coming across at all.
Well, when Paul Rudd takes a job,
there we go. We're there. We arrived safely.
But directing is
too much of an undertaking.
I mean, I could see wanting to do it, and I could see wanting to do it with something that I would write.
Right.
That's how I think it would happen.
It would have to be, right? Something that you would care that much about.
Unless we get Inherit the Wind to go up at the Round Wharf.
Please, what are we talking about?
That I've been working on.
I have to tell you, honestly, that my favorite to date is your work in I Love You Man, because there is a silly ease that, as an audience member, I gravitate towards in my comedic so-called leading men. I don't know, leading men always seems like a phrase that can only be hung on
William Holden.
You know what I mean? A yesteryear, sort of. But you're number 1 or 2 on the call sheet. A comedic ease where I see, I'm sensing an effortlessness that makes it all very easy and therefore more believable and therefore more organic. While your character in the film could not be more ill at ease in his everyday life.
Yeah.
How much it was improvised in that? Because the chemistry between the two of you is a little ridiculous.
He's great. Jason is.
I mean,
yeah. We enjoy working with each other.
Yes.
That was our 3rd time.
Right.
But the first time we really did have a ton of stuff. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, we had some. I think that was really where we first kind of got to play around and make up stuff, and it was really fun. There was a lot. John Hamburg, who directed it and wrote it, is a great writer, and I remember getting and I've known John for many years, and I read the script and thought it was awesome. Like, he had done this great job on it.
It also spoke to a generation of men
I just, you know, I remember thinking when I read it, this is such an obvious thing. I can't believe I haven't read a romantic comedy between two friends, like two men, and following all of the same kind of beats, you know, all the same, the breakup and even down to some of the lines. I think that we need to spend a little time apart. Like, it really, I just thought that really, you know, I thought it was really funny,
smart and clever.
And a lot of the awkward stuff and about nicknames and all of these things, like, they kind of came about in rehearsals, and then also just filming them. You know, just John saying, "All right, go ahead now, just say stuff." And Jason and I really love working together.
Right.
In the script, one of the lines that was written, that John had written, was when he calls, and I get to meet him for the first time. He calls me. I go, "All right, well, I'll see you in a jiff." and I hung up the phone, and it says in the script, you know, "Did you say see you in a jiff?" And I say, "I know, I've never used that expression in my life." And I remember thinking, that right there, that's it. That's that character. So that kind of trying to play it cool, excited, and not quite, and just being kind of dorky in a way, but well-intentioned. I relate to that. I
think everyone does.
I think people do, yeah.
Because everyone has a moment of awkwardness that they can't take back.
I mean, the number of times in my life where I have somehow, like, walked into a group of people talking or whatever, and it felt like, oh, clearly the imposter or the new guy or at a dinner or something. And, you know, it's like you're in conversation. I'm saying, why can't I make myself shut up right now? And I'm still talking, and I know it. What am I saying? Yeah. Why am I doing this? And I can't, and I'm just going to go home, and I'm going to lay in bed and replay the evening in my mind, and I just know that feeling so much.
But how much fun then?
So much fun.
Realizing that guy.
It was because
there are outtakes that are ridiculous.
Well, I would say, you know, I laugh on everything. That I used to think I was decent. I'm not, and I do laugh a lot.
And Rob Hubel's great, and the stuff between the two of you make.
I love you, man.
Keep straight face with
I
him.
love you. Oh God, he almost. Role models, I actually wet my pants once. I did actually wet my pants.
All right.
Hubel almost. Joe Latrulio made me wet my pants in Role Models. Hubel got real close. And
number two, though.
He made me shit my pants. Hubel actually made me shit my pants. It was just such a good part. And I think one that I like. I could kind of envision, and it allowed for this freedom, and I just found all of it so funny. But I was particularly so useless when it came to laughing on that one. There were times when, you know, you have a mag on a film. It's like you have to load reels of film onto a camera. You know this, but each mag generally runs about 12 to 15 minutes if you were just to run it. A lot of directors will just kind of keep a take open. Judd Apatow's like that, where it's like, just keep going, I'm going to keep filming.
Start again.
Don't yell cut, don't do it. There was in I Love You, Man, I started laughing. I could not get out the line City Slicker. I call him City Slicker.
I do remember that on the outtake thing.
That was only part of it.
You ate a mag?
The entire mag. John Hamburg he goes, I'm not yelling cut. Just keep, he's like, you know, he's like, no. And I could not get the line out. I couldn't. And we went through an entire mag, and with not one thing that was usable.
Impossible.
Yeah. And I did it.
There should be some trophy.
The worst part of it, though, is that it was my joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you weren't laughing at your own joke. No, it takes on its own life.
Well, maybe that was it. It was hot in the room.
At some point, your brain literally can't function in normal terms. It just starts to become oatmeal.
Yeah.
And the words sound like a different language.
And then you know, you see the crew just getting like more and more annoyed. It's like, we got to go to lunch. You know,
right.
I don't want to enough.
Don't laugh at the funeral.
And the crew is but then there's then you'll be all right. I'm gonna get it together, and then there's like the boom guy who's like, and if I see that, I'm done.
Yeah.
Or if somebody,
there's a sense on set when someone's losing it. It becomes infectious. It goes around, and everyone gets in on it. And unfortunately, only one of us or a couple of us are the ones where the camera's actually pointing at us, and we're seeing everyone lose it, taking their. And then it just becomes the thing, and then it's got a life of its own, and then it has to go to another place.
But I love it. I love it when it happens because I think it's just.
Then you're sweating, and someone has to dab you.
I mean, feel bad. I do feel bad, and I feel horrible if I do it and somebody's take and ruin their thing.
Oh, sure.
Which I've done. But I love it when people are laughing, and because I think it can really add something when you can contain it, and then there's like some energy that's been injected into it. But I don't laugh like that sometimes in life. It's hard to really just uncontrollable laughter for me in life. And for some reason, it just comes at the most inopportune times. That's when I will like really, the places where you just are not supposed to.
Well, that's clearly part of it.
Yeah, that is, isn't it?
Yeah. Do not laugh at the funeral.
Yeah.
The as I continue the wonderful tradition of bringing everything back to myself. The police lineup scene in Usual Suspects are actually outtakes that Bryan Singer finally said, I have to figure out a way to cut this together. We were all supposed to say that line seriously as a fuck you to the cops. We're not intimidated. We could not get through it without laughing as we're passing the card down the line. Literally, it's the only day we're at lunch, Bryan, the director, came to we, the suspects, and said, you guys have fucked me. You've killed half a day. I can't use a single take. You've got to, and no, that was telling kids not to laugh at the funeral, because we go back the second half of the day, more laughing. I think Benicio passed 9 takes in a row, which is not easy. You have to pace yourself.
9 is good.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, to Bryan's credit, in editing, he said, well, the straight-faced fuck you to the cops was also a way to create a camaraderie amongst these 5 guys we've just met. But now here they're cutting up and laughing. It's the same effect. There's no bigger fuck you to the cops
and
than
it's
laughing.
Real. Yeah.
And it's real. So
and it's great. And it's wow.
But that was a day of it took taking turns. No one could control it through a take.
Yeah.
A whole day wasted. So boy, can I relate to, and then it becomes the pressure of I don't want to disappoint everyone now.
Yeah.
Now it's on me. I'm the one fucking this up. That's a part of it too.
It's no different. It's no different than what we all felt when we were in school, and a teacher comes in and says, "Oh, stop it. Be quiet. You can't. Enough."
Nothing funnier.
Oh, forget it. And if you get a Latin school or
there's nothing funnier than enough.
No. Watching somebody, when you start laughing and then seeing somebody get mad at it, forget it.
Yeah, the more pissed off they get. Absolutely.
The funnier it is.
Oh, man. Let's do a couple more of the audience, if you don't mind. We have a couple of regulars who I don't want to leave out. At Martha_S, this would be a tweet 5, I believe. There's Davey. We love him. Don't want to leave him out of the stage or screen.
Ask Kevin.
Oh, good. Right on it. Perfect. Stage or screen?
I answered this one.
Yeah, Little Britain, Mr. Show.
Oh, God, good one.
That is a good one.
That's a really, really good one. I'll tell you. Oh,
God.
I was really obsessed with both of them. Mr. Show rocked my world when it was on. As in Little Britain, but boy, Mr. Show was... Yeah,
that'll change your religion. On a desert island with Siegel or Rogan? Again, how do you win here? There's no winning for you.
I think, but I think you go Rogan
because at some point it's about man love.
Siegel will attack you. Seth will just be too high. He'll find something on the island to smoke, and he'll just be like, and he'll just sit and look at a tree.
Love, lost, finale, or disappointed? And before the show, I think you mentioned that you didn't.
Oh, you know what? Lost. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the finale. I was obsessed with Lost for the first 3 seasons, and then just life gets in the way, and I kind of quit watching.
Would you rather DJ a bar mitzvah or cater it all these years later?
Oh boy. Well, I would rather DJ it because catering is
a lot more work.
Is tough, and yeah.
And you rarely get to dance around a 13-year-old girl when you're catering.
Yeah, I'd rather slice the bread than have to serve it.
Wow. If only we could end on that note. I won't allow it. This is a great question from @Martha_S. Comparing LaBute and Apatow's approach to your likability, I touched on it a little bit, and she writes it rather more articulate, that LaBute seems to know and understand audiences' ease with you, and he uses it and then challenges the audience's expectation by casting you in roles that aren't so sympathetic or likable. Do you guys discuss that ahead of time? Is it just obvious to you when you read the material that that's what he's doing, or God forbid this is the first time it's being brought to your attention?
No, I mean, we've talked about it in the past, but I think it's clear when I read it. I mean, Neil is a writer that he just loves to
push buttons.
And kind of do the unexpected and try and show like what any of us are really capable of doing, whether we really think we are,
And I imagine
not.
That fuels your interest of working with.
Well, it makes it, I mean, at first it was like, God, I can't believe it. I'm getting to play parts that people think that I would have said, no, it seems too nice. You say, no, don't you understand? When you have somebody who an audience can relate to, or something, then maybe it can have a good effect when it's like, and I think Neil he told me that. He's like, he told me that very thing. Audiences relate to you. They like you, and then if you do something really horrible, it is clearly has a different you have a different reaction than
he's challenging the audience.
And so I love that. I mean, I love that, and I also, even apart from all of that, I love the way he writes.
Sure.
I mean, I love his, he's just so good with detail and just, a guy who just uses the phrase whatnot all the time. It's really, so I'm drinking this coffee and whatnot, and it's just like the inane kind of vernacular of somebody that's not that smart. And
right.
and he, he'll change tense in a sentence. He just writes in the way that we speak. It's great.
And that's the fun part.
It makes it hard to memorize.
Does it?
He's harder to memorize than any other writer I've ever worked on, including like Shakespeare or anything Jacobean. Neil LaBute's dialogue is really tricky because it doesn't follow a rule. There are ums and likes and and all of the kind of. And
you want to be true to where their placement is.
Yes, it's different than working on a movie or a TV show where it's like you can just kind of paraphrase or make it your own. With the way Neil writes, and certainly a play, and this applies to most playwrights, you want to be true to the text. That being said, for somebody who is so specific about the way he writes, he's not married to any of it.
Wow.
And that's the really surprising thing when I first started kind of working with him on it. He's like, well, how would you say it? He goes, okay. He has a very specific opinion, and occasionally say, no, I think we leave the rhythm of that and let's go with that. But he's not precious about his words at all, and I would have expected the opposite.
Yeah, I would say that'd be true of most playwrights being very protective.
Yeah,
because it's the one medium that they can write and know that their words will be protected.
He loves collaboration. He loves collaborating with other directors. He loves when other people do his stuff. He loves it when he's working on something and the actors are involved and we're all working on it. He loves the theater. He loves rehearsal. He loves all of that stuff. And
so consequently, when you now have written a script, in the case of role models, and you've got actors, do you want them to make it their own? Did you go through?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment of, oh no, that's not the rhythm? I mean, there has to be a couple of moments. Or you're the devil.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I had a weird thing where it's like stuff that I had written and people were saying, like, it kind of was the way that I imagined it. I mean, with some of the parts, like Jane Lynch and Latrulio, there were people that were kind of hired that we'd all worked with before and were friends and knew were super funny and were going to come up with anything better than what we wrote. But the kid, Bobby J. Thompson, who played like the little boy, you know, he just had this uncanny ability for saying a joke the exact way I imagined it sounding.
Wow.
And I know that doesn't really. He just knew how to where to put the inflection and the attitude. And,
Hit the right syllable.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
But I love it when people make it their own. No, for sure.
I believe you are technically off the hook. You have fulfilled your obligations. We couldn't be happier. I do want to ask, if you don't mind, getting back to Outliers, about the ridiculous April-May connection to St. Louis, Kansas City with you, John Hamm, and Joe Buck, because that's kind of crazy. You guys became...
Yeah, well, I'm from Kansas City. Those guys are from St. Louis.
Did they know each other before you met?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they knew each other. The kind of lightning rod with all of us is this guy named Preston Clark.
Sure.
In the Clark family. Preston Clark was my roommate at KU my freshman year at University of Kansas. He's from St. Louis. Joe Buck was his best friend in junior high and high school, and John Hamm was really good friends of the family and was kind of their adopted son. So when I went to St. Louis, I met these guys and hit it off with them, and we have been friends now. I've been friends with Joe and John since we were...
Freshmen in college.
Yeah, and John was still in high school. John was still in high school. In fact, I want to say that Donnie Dweeb story, I was with those guys. In fact, the guy who looked at me and said, "What the hell just happened in there?" was Joe Buck.
Is that right?
And he still was like, "Jesus Christ, that was...
We've got to get to the Magic Castle. What the hell?
What the hell was it?" So that was, I've known those guys. I've now known those guys for, geez, man, like half my life.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It's pretty cool. I mean, the first game Joe ever did on his own, like ever commentated on, he had done stuff with his dad, Jack, and
Sure.
he had sat in for the second inning on KMOX and did Cardinal games. But I remember he did a Columbia, Missouri, an MU basketball game, and he had a cassette, and we sat in his car and listened to it. And I remember thinking, like, dude, you called a whole game by yourself. That's incredible. Now he does like the World Series.
Oh, but the magic of that moment, listening to that cassette.
Yeah.
Truly, with a pal who's literally at the precipice of his career.
Yeah, he was just starting. And the one thing is he's so dry and so funny. And I remember listening to him when he was starting and thinking, he's sitting on how funny he is. People don't even know how like quick and funny and dry Joe is. And
No idea.
And I remember I remember actually like watching a Chiefs game on TV, and he was doing it. And this was early in his career. And they were going around and showing shots, and they had a shot of the band, and it was like, all these kids, and it was all these kids, and then an old man, like kind of a balding old man with a ponytail, gray hair, sitting with a trumpet amongst. He was part of the band, but he was clearly older than the rest of the band, and Joe was like, beautiful day here at Arrowhead at 70 degrees. The camera's going. They cuts to this, and he just goes, "George Carlin sitting in with the band today." Goes to something else. Just no comment on it at all.
Nice.
No, nothing. It's just like,
So proud.
That's Joe right there. Like, just you wouldn't even catch it.
So proud.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't get a message. I thought I would as we were gathering last minute. I want to thank Jamie again for helping to gather all the questions that came in from Twitter. And I'm surprised I don't see it here. But there's some strange connection with friends of ours. Last name is Rink, whose mother or father have a store, a framing store maybe? You have a place somewhere upstate.
Oh, is it upstate New York? Yeah.
You know who I'm kind of talking
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Is the name Rink, the last name Rink? Is it Travis Rink is the I think it's his.
It's not Rink.
No.
Yeah.
I know there's a connection here.
There's a Lori. There's a Colgan involved. Not Rink.
Well, I think they may be. There is a relation.
Okay,
sure,
right. So
because I remember these friends of ours saying my parents just.
There's a Colgan involved.
They're framing something for Paul Rudd, and it was a wonderful.
They're a very nice family that run a privately. I have a lot of old newspapers and a lot of historical artifacts and
documents.
Yeah, lots of things that I've collected and my father collected. And as you mentioned, I have a pub in my house. I have an Irish pub, and I've converted the basement of my house to a full-on Irish pub. And so I have a lot of old newspapers and things on the walls, and they've done my framing.
They've done a tremendous job.
They've been great. They've been great.
I wanted to give a shout out to them at some point during the show. Yeah, your pub, as I understand it, is really a sort of a dedication to
my dad.
To your dad,
which wasn't the my son. His name is Jack Sullivan Rudd, like any nice Jewish boy should be named. And my parents bought a house when he was born, and my father was very, very handy and could build homes. It could do anything.
Right.
And he said, I want my grandson, his first grandson in the family, first grandchild in the family, to be a publican. I want him not a Republican, but I want him to be a publican. And he's going to own I want him to have his own Irish pub.
Oh.
So he took a year and he built it himself. And he turned the basement into an Irish pub called Sullivan's in honor of my son. And he never sent me pictures when he was doing it. He would give me updates.
Uh-huh.
He said, when it's done, you'll come back to Kansas City and you can see it. And finally, like a year later, he said, all right, it's done. I went back and it blew my mind.
Had to have.
It's incredible. And the only way I could describe it was I walked down in the basement, and it wasn't as if somebody put a pub in their basement. It was really as if somebody built a house over an authentic Irish pub.
Been there forever.
Yeah, has Guinness on draft, and but just the tin ceilings, all of the paint looked, WC water closet thing on the bathroom door. I mean, really, picture of Kennedy over all of it, and
it's all about detail.
And what I realized. Over the course of that year, 2 years, was my parents loved to entertain, and people would come over, and it's just everything would always wind up in the pub. Everyone would always go downstairs. No one sat in the living room after dinner anymore.
No.
And it was so fun and so great. And they lived in like the suburbs. I mean, people would come by and just have a beer or whatever. I told my dad, I said, you ruined it. Now every house I ever get, if I ever, ever buy a house, I'm going to have a pub in it. So I did. We wound up buying a house in upstate New York, and as soon as we'd look at houses, my wife and I would go in, and I just immediately go down to the basement because I didn't care about the rest of the house.
Is there enough room for a pub?
Does this look like a good layout for a pub? And my dad was going to move out, and we were going to build it together. He was going to take, I was going to take time off. We were going to really, and then, unfortunately, he got diagnosed with cancer, and he wound up passing away about 10 months later, and so. He knew I had bought the house. He knew I was going to do it.
Right.
I had to hire somebody
Sure.
to, like a contractor, really help because I couldn't do things that he could do. And so he came. He was able to see my house one time, which I'm really happy that was the case.
Sure.
And we walked around this empty concrete basement. I was like, I'm going to put a pub here and this and that. And I remember I go, put the bathroom there, and my dad said, you should put it there. When you want to put it there, it's right by this.
Nice.
I said, really, you think?
Nice.
He goes, yeah, I think it makes more sense. I said, all right. So I moved it there, and and then he passed away, and he never got to see it, which is just crushing for me. But
it's a lifelong dedication.
It is not. It was Sullivan's Annex, Sullivan's East.
Nice.
But I thought, this would be my son's East Coast poster. Yes, it's totally for my father. It's got more of my dad all over that place, and now because I have such a quick walk to the bathroom, I think of him every time I take a piss.
As it should be. How old is Jack Sullivan?
He's 5.
Happy Father's Day belated.
Thank you.
And he's loving the Guinness already.
He this is bad. He tried it when he was 5 weeks old. And it makes me wonder.
We have social services right here waiting.
It's just I just did. I was like, you can try it.
I was like that with vodka when I was.
I remember my parents said, "Oh God, I used to have gripe water as a kid. It was all alcohol. It made my stomach aches go away."
Oh yeah.
So he doesn't really drink it now. He doesn't have it.
There's time.
He's more of a single malt
sure.
kid now.
Well, he's smart.
Yeah. No, he's got class.
Can't thank you enough. I believe you know how the proceedings end. As explained before, we met at a poker table, I believe, at Rich Eisen's house.
Right.
And I threw out the Larry King game to the table, and it went around, and we had hours for it to permeate.
And I couldn't get over it. I remember you and I were doing a lot of them.
Yeah, we were dominating for sure.
It was just a great game.
And I was sort of tickled, like, oh, good, there's someone else other than me who realizes the fun to be had here. And then it get darker and darker as the night wore on.
Yeah. I wish I could remember some of the ones that were said.
That would be cheating.
Right.
That is your camera.
So I just go with a brand new one.
It's anything that comes to mind. The basic rules again, the bad Larry King impression. It's that moment when Larry reveals something. When you're ready, sir. Take your time. No worries.
My hand smells weird. Ames, Iowa. Hello.
Perfect. Soup to nuts.
I didn't know. I hadn't really thought about one, but it seemed like a hand that smells weird.
I want to continue to think about whatever that Larry King says, and that's what you've allowed me. I now get to think about why Larry's hand smells weird for the rest of the night.
You know what's weird is I think I have a reason why. I think I know why.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
But I get to think about it now, and I can't.
It's cryptic.
I can't thank you enough for that. All right. Stay there uncomfortably while I wrap things up, if you don't mind, please. But thank you so very, very much for the last few hours. Thanks so much for everyone for tuning in a Sunday or after the fact on your iTunes and your elsewheres. Please stay tuned for This Week in Comedy, followed by This Week in Movies, those of us joining you on the thisweekend.com network. I want to thank everybody again here, who worked so hard here in New York to make this a very enjoyable experience, and everyone on my crew back in Los Angeles for helping out frantically in the 11th hour, as of course I put off everything as I possibly can to the last minute. Thank you all very much for enjoying as much of this as you could, and we'll see you next week with J.K. Simmons, Neil Patrick Harris to join us a couple of weeks after that. Excited about that as well. Until then, as always, get out of my face. Excuse me. Geez, I hate to bother you. Just one more thing. PickClick.com is a new sponsor on the show, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank them. PickClick.com is a visual search engine that helps you shop more effectively. Browse through photos from your favorite sites to find exactly what you want. Fast. Up to 12 times faster. Oh yes. For browsing than just using the actual sites. Imagine. It's true. Featured sites include eBay, Amazon, Etsy, Plenty of Fish, Yelp, allrecipes.com, and of course, Google. Categories make it easy to zero in on just the content you want. Scroll bars allow you to make the images as big or as small as you'd like. PicClick.com. Stop fussing around. Wow. I also want to thank the fine folks at ePromos for supplying us with our brand new fancy Kevin Pollak's Chat Show mugs. Now enjoy the closing credits, won't you?